My name is Thalbauer. I'm leading the solution go-to-market organization at SAP for everything what we call digital supply chain. Digital supply chain stands, of course, for all the solutions and business processes which are relevant for the chief operating officer or the chief supply chain officer, which includes the supply chain planning topic, the logistics area, but also everything around product innovation, from the product design to manufacturing to the asset management, so to the operational level. So this is the scope. Whenever we use the term digital supply chain, we have in mind. This presentation this afternoon will focus really first on the major themes which we hear, what's going on in the market, but then really how do we translate that? What does these translate to in terms of kind of requirements from all the companies around the world? I will then really focus on the strategies companies are putting in place, and finally I will finish off with really talking a little bit about the SAP portfolio in order to support our customers around the world. So let's get started and let's really dig into the topic of digital supply chain and the big themes which we hear around the world, right? I'm constantly really visiting customers in all the different regions, all the different industries, and these are the three major themes and the three major words which always come up. The first one is volatility, and definitely this is not a surprise to any one of you, right? Volatility is nothing new for every supply chain professional, for anybody in operations. It has been there forever and will be there forever. But why is this coming up so much? Because there's something in addition going on right now around the world, right? So there's a lot of geopolitical influence in the supply chains, in manufacturing. Just think about it. A tweet can change the supply chain, right? A tweet from a president in the US about, let's say, a tariff increase in Mexico immediately sent off hundreds and thousands of trucks going to Mexico, buying whatever product they can, bring it back to the US and fill the warehouses. So what did this do, right? First of all, it disrupted manufacturing in Mexico for this 1 week. Second, it built out all the products in the warehouses in the US, so a lot of cost actually in the supply chain, and a huge disruption. But then, of course, you have the trade wars, right, between China and the US, and many companies really made the decision to move even their manufacturing plants. So huge disruption. It's not just, let's say, 1 week, I have a production peak or inventory build-up. I really change my supply chain for good, right? If I move the manufacturing plant maybe to Taiwan or to Vietnam or to Japan, right? Many of these industries really made these major moves, and this, of course, really impacts how companies run their supply chain, how they need to build the networks, how they build the partners in these countries, and it has a huge ripple effect. There's another big volatility aspect, which is, of course, Brexit in Europe, right? And still today, we don't know yet, will there be Brexit end of October or not? But this did for companies in Europe is especially very critical when it comes to the supply chain manufacturing processes. All these companies throughout the entire year were building up the inventory. There's not a single warehouse space available for additional product because it's really full. And this is just for the case there is a hard Brexit. Right? There was even a situation where the British government ordered ships going around the island for quite some time with pharma products, just in case there's a hard Brexit and they needed to replenish the hospitals, right? So you see what I'm going to here. When we think about the volatility aspect, in addition to weather phenomenon like hurricanes, typhoons, earthquakes, we now have also a lot of geopolitical impact into the supply chain. And what does this do now? What is the requirement? What is the big requirement from all the companies around the world? Every single company asks for total visibility. I need to have more visibility in the supply chain. And the idea is, if I have more visibility, I then actually can reduce this uncertainty. I know what's going on. I can react much faster, right? So the big requirement when it comes to volatility is really about visibility. How do I generate visibility? Well, I need to connect, right? I need to connect my business partners and I need to connect the things. If I connect the business partners, I get, of course, the information to my suppliers, from my suppliers. I can digitally connect to my equipment manufacturers, to my manufacturing outsourcing partners, to the logistics service providers. So there are many business partners in the supply chain I need to connect in a digital way. That's the first piece. But in addition to that, I need to connect also to the things, right? And if I connect to the things, like an asset, a machine, a truck, now I get a real-time picture of the real world, and I build a digital twin of the supply chain. right? So think about it. If I connect to the business partners and to the real world, now I really generate visibility. If I mix that with my operational information, now I really can make decisions in a much smarter way, in a much better way, in a much faster way. This is the first big requirement, the first big discussion, all coming from this discussion around volatility. I need visibility, and this can be answered by connecting the business partners and connecting to the things. So what is the second big thing which is being discussed all the time? Second big thing is sustainability. We just heard from Schneider also the sustainability goals. You can ask probably every single company in this room, what is your sustainability goal? It's either energy reduction, energy consumption reduction, or it is the carbon oxide, neutral carbon oxide by a certain time frame, right? So you have these big themes. It has a huge impact in how companies run their supply chain. It has a huge impact in how they innovate their products. New materials are being used, right? Just think about the discussion around plastic. But then it has also the impact on introducing new business models. The business model around circular economy. More and more companies really engage in a circular economy, reusing materials, recycling materials, and then bringing it to the market again. It's a big topic for mining industries, right? Instead of digging out new material, why can't I recycle actually, and with that become a very efficient circular economy member in the industry? So lot of topic, lot of innovation actually on this topic of sustainability. And the third area we are convinced is the probably most important one for every single customer, is all around the customer centricity. And the customer centricity measured by the experience the customer has. The customer has the experience not only during the sales process, but it's also about the experience from the product, for the delivery, for the service. So it's one of the biggest topics for a chief operating officer, chief supply chain officer. How can I satisfy my customer? And how can I build this customer centricity? And this is an area which is super important, where we focus a lot of our energy, that we really tie the customer much, much closer to the different organizational units in the company. But let me start in introducing that theme a little bit more with a video. I think this video describes a lot actually what we need to do. We need to understand the customer. We need to understand every single person in order to really provide the best experience for this customer. We need to understand that we need to tie this information to the organizational unit. Experience management is important for everyone who works in logistics. The person in logistics shouldn't need to ask actually the person in sales or marketing about what are our customers saying. We need to bring this information directly to the this organization. Same is true for the asset management, for the operations area. Same is true for the manufacturing area when it's about quality. Same is true for all the different areas in supply chain. So very, very important. And then there's one big truth out there, right? So when you think about this experience management, you ask the CEOs, what do you think your customer experience is? Is your customer happy? 80% of the CEOs would answer yes. If you ask their customers, 8% would say yes. So we know there's a huge experience gap, and we need to solve this gap, right? So because every single mismanagement or discrepancy in this idea has a huge business impact, right? And this is something which we need to solve. So we need to bring the experience data, the so-called X data, together with the operational data. Okay? Then we really can make a difference, which means I have the information from my customer and I not only use that as a survey and kind of analytics, but immediately use it in order to improve actually the services for my customers. I put that in segmentation, I provide a specific offering, and so on, right? So there's a huge topic for everyone in supply chain to really bring the customer much, much closer. How do we do that from a solution perspective? SAP has introduced a strategy actually 2 years ago, which is all around the intelligent enterprise. The intelligent enterprise ties together all the business processes in a company in an integrated fashion. We are not talking about a monolithic solution. We are talking about a modular solution, a modular approach where we provide best-in-class applications for every single organization in every company. So that's the first principle. But this modular approach means they need to be integrated, and the integration needs to be seamless. So we need to actually have a data model which goes from the beginning to the end. And then the second piece of the intelligent enterprise is that we need to tie in technology. Technology is not just, let's say, something which you put on the side and have somebody else working on it, some data scientists and so on. We need to embed technology directly into the business process. And this is part of this strategy of the intelligent enterprise, which means I use machine learning, I use blockchain, I use IoT technology, I use predictive analytics directly as part of the business process, not as a separate entity or by transferring data from one system to the next one. And then the key is, now if I have this information, I have this aspect, now I bring in also the experience management data. I tie my customer closely into my enterprise. Yeah, get the product experience, get the customer experience. By the way, it's super important when we say customer experience, and for example in logistics we ask the customer, how satisfied were you with the delivery service? That's one part, but please keep in mind it's also equally important to ask the same question the employees in logistics, right? Having really both sides. So the logistics people also answering the question, what is your experience? How happy are you? Because happy people in the organization deliver the best service. It's that simple, right? So both sides need to come together, and both data points are really, really important, right? So think about this idea of having this intelligent enterprise which allows us to really leverage technology, building these data lakes, getting the digital twin of a supply chain, but then really tying in also the customer directly into the supply chain. And then I'm talking about generating visibility and creating visibility for the supply chain. When we talk with customers and work with customers around the world, we also think about what kind of strategies are these companies applying when they go through a digital transformation in a digital supply chain project. And in general, we find out there are about 3 of these strategies. The first one is a digital supply chain is a connected supply chain. Pretty much what I described already at the beginning. We need to understand, right, so we need to connect the business partners in a digital way. What I mean with that is not just sending them an email or sharing Excel spreadsheet, but really connecting them in a digital way, onboard them onto a network. Why is that? Think about how many suppliers or how many logistics service providers or how many equipment manufacturers you have with your company as partners, and then how many of them are really connected in a digital way. And I can tell you the average is about 10%, right? 90% is a black box, which means there's a huge opportunity. If I just start connecting in a digital way to these business partners, I get already much more visibility, I get much more intelligent, and can run my supply chain with much reduced uncertainty. So First aspect, connecting the business partners. The second one is also on the things, right? And here really it's about the connectivity, leveraging the information from the machines, leveraging the information from the assets, from the trucks, from everything, if you will, in order to build this digital twin. Very, very important, because this is really new. It helps us in the supply chain world to understand what is going on. Think back just a couple of years. We always were and had solutions for planning. We also had solutions for execution. But if something happens, the supply chain professional needed to call maybe somebody in the warehouse or somebody in manufacturing on the shop floor in order to really solve the problem. There was no digital mirror, right? So there was no digital twin of the supply chain where they could really understand what's going on and immediately provide solutions. So very different, very big thing actually. And also here the adoption is not yet where we need to have it, right? So we need to actually accelerate the adoption of IoT in the manufacturing shop floors, in the asset management areas in order to build this digital twin. So that's all around the connectivity. The second,
ladies and gentlemen, continue your learning journey with our 3 to 10 sandbox sessions in Hall 3.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome. So now the second piece is really about the predictive supply chain, right? So we have now connected the business partners, we have connected the things. The big thing what we can do now is instead of running a supply chain alert driven, right? There's an alert, there's an issue, now I need to react to the alert. Now I introduce machine learning and start to do predictive supply chain, right? Predictive not just in the maintenance process, also in the logistics process where I predict the ETA, I can do predictive quality management, I can do predictive analytics actually in demand management, right? So really introducing this concept of predicting the future instead of waiting something happens and then reacting to it. It's super important because this changes the way how we run supply chains. And the third strategy companies are implementing is by high degree of automation. We all know that in manufacturing shop floors, hardly any operator anymore, but mainly service technicians, right? So you have that already. But then when you think about it, it's true on the hardware side. On the business process side, they're still pretty much run the same way. So we need to automate also the business processes on top of it, right, in order to really be smart and get it in sync again between the manufacturing business process and the hardware itself. So 3 strategies companies are using. They are not exclusive from each other and they're being mixed actually, companies adopting them in a mixed way. But it's really about getting more visibility by connecting. The second piece is now changing the way I run my supply chain by becoming predictive. And the third one is really about the intelligent enterprise, intelligent supply chain, which is really a degree of automation. And SAP is, of course, offering the supply chain, the digital supply chain processes in an end-to-end way. So we are talking about the business processes from design to operate. And design to operate, of course, covers all the aspects from the design department to manufacturing to deliver. The operation and planning sits in the middle. Planning is the nerve center. It's not just one step. Planning goes on all the time. So we need to actually have the planning processes in the middle of it. SAP is investing heavily in this area. It's one of the strategic areas where we invest not just in the solutions, but in people around the world, in knowledge around the world, and really leading this with a very powerful, highly innovative application and business process area. You can see all of that actually also here on the floor outside at the SAP booth. We go through with this design to operate processes. Just follow it through if you have time. It's really quite exciting what has been done and what can be done. So thank you very much for joining this session.